Part 1. My name is David. It is also Tanya. I used to be 38, but am now 12. I once was a man, rather nondescript person who didn't attract attention. In this day of living off of the grid, I didn't exist. I had been a criminal of one sort or another all of my life. I had become very efficient at two things: acquiring objects for other people and killing people. It isn't as strange a combination as it may seem. I would kill people if I had to while stealing, and when I wasn't working as a thief, there always seemed to be work out there as a hitman. It was as a thief that I got into a type of trouble I couldn't get out of. I had one firm and fast rule. I wouldn't kill kids. Used to be that no one would kill women, but me, I would take the work, as I figured as long it was adults, one was as good as the other. This was partly the cause of my current condition. My last job was to go into a house and to steal a book. I was offered $1 million more than any single job where I didn't have to fence what I took. I lived simply enough that it would go a long ways. I got a layout of the house and profiles of the residents. A mother and her 12-year-old girl lived there. I was a little worried about that until I saw a pattern. Both of them would be gone on a certain night for the girls' ice skating practice. I used 1 week to go in and check things out, and the next time I was ready. I saw the girl get picked up. I guess her mom came from work, and then went in. I checked around again for any special alarms I had missed, and then went to the room where the book was kept. I hadn't wasted time before looking at the book itself, but the room it was in kind of creeped me out. It was full of all kinds of witches' stuff. I picked the book off of the stand it was on, and put it in my bag. I was turning to leave when I heard a voice say, "Who the hell are you?" I turned around and saw the daughter there. She saw I was stealing the book and turned to run. I admit, I panicked. I ran after her and grabbed her arm. She still had her ice skates in her hand and slung one straight at my head. I have to admit I admired her guts. I ducked and smashed a fist into her jaw. She fell backwards and hit her head hard. She wasn't moving, and that scared me. I hadn't known what killing a kid would feel like, but I hated it. I ran over to her and felt for a pulse. I couldn't help myself. Instead of running, I went to her and started CPR. I didn't want a kid's blood on my head. Then I heard a shout behind me. I stood up and turned around when a voice said, "Get the hell away from my daughter," and I was blasted against the wall by some kind of force. As I lapsed into unconsciousness, I saw that it was the mom. What the hell had she done to me? When I woke up, it felt like days later. I found that I was in a hospital bed, so I immediately checked for a handcuff on my wrist to the bed. Then, I noticed something weird. My arm didn't look right. It was smaller, much smaller. And, at the end of my smaller hands, I saw that my nails were painted, pink of all colors. Was this a bad joke? I reached until I found the buzzer on the bed, and rang for help. The nurse came in and said, "You're awake." Finally! Let me call the doctor and your mom. I must have banged my head harder than I thought. My mom and dad were dead. I should know, as I killed them. That one wasn't for money, it was personal. They had been hugely abusive while I was growing up, and once I started down my path, a little revenge seemed in order. My question was soon answered when the doctor and the woman from the house came into the room. The doctor was one of those young girls, who looked like she stepped out of high school and into a doctor's jacket. She said, "It looks like you're going to recover, although how, I don't know." I hate to use the word miraculous, but she checked me out and then left me with the woman. She smiled and said, I guess we have a lot to talk about. First, let me straighten you up a little bit. I had no idea what she meant right away, but I was too weak to argue. I felt her brushing my hair and applying something lightly to my face. She then said, I want to show you something first, and then I'll let you have a look in the mirror. She pulled off the hospital bed covers and I thought something was looking funny in the hospital gown. She started loosening it from the back and then I saw what. First, there was a small pair of breasts. Just like those of a younger girl. Then, she loosened it more and I saw a small pair of cotton panties. She said, the reason you haven't felt these things is because of the drugs they've kept you on. But even you should be able to feel this. She took my hand and made me touch myself between my legs and I could feel I didn't have my parts anymore, I had a vagina. I said, what the hell have you done to me? She smiled and picked up a mirror. She let me look into it and said, this is your future. I looked into the mirror, and although the face was drawn and haggard from being in a coma for a while, it was impossible not to recognize. I was looking at the face of her daughter. I laid there in the bed in total shock. I dealt with all kinds of stuff. I killed people at times, damn it, but how do you react to being blasted into unconsciousness in a 38-year-old male body, and wake up in a 12-year-old girl's body, and not be shocked? I lay there, as the woman laughed at my reaction, and then I did the weirdest thing, at least for me, I started crying. Somehow, I knew it was partially the body I was in reacting to the whole thing. But that just freaked me out more. I said, how the hell did you do this to me? She said. I know they want to check you out, and take out the catheter inside you, so I'll leave you to think about this, but don't worry, I'll be back with some of your regular pajamas. Then she was gone. I'm not sure it wasn't worse now, laying there without any explanation. They took out the catheter, and poked and prodded at me some more, talking about what a miracle I was. They used some words and terms that I guess they didn't think I would understand, but then, I wasn't really a 12-year-old anyway. Then, I was alone for a while. I couldn't help myself. I started to wonder what the girl was like. I started getting weird flashes of something like memories, except they weren't mine. Of being this girl whose body I was in. Two things that came through real quick: she loved her life, and unlike me when I was in middle school and high school, she was popular. Not that phony kind, where you are just being who people want you to be, but the real kind, where she was just a good person. But there was something about the mom. She loved her mom, but even she was creeped out a little by something about her. I hoped that more memories would come, if I was going to be trapped in this body for long. Finally, Mom came back. I guess it was a Freudian slip, but after the memories started coming, I couldn't help thinking of her that way a little. She took one look in my eyes and said, "You're starting to get her memories. That's good. It will be easier on you. The doctor said that you can go home in a couple of days, as long as you take it easy. But I do imagine you would like to know what is going on. I need you to know right from the start that I loved my daughter. Tanya was a special girl, as your new memories should be telling you. Don't worry, I made sure they would come slow, so you can process them." She then pulled out a bag, and started putting a few things away in drawers. She handed me some pink-looking, smelly soap, and some shampoo that looked like a kid's. She said, "You like bubble baths, but that will have to wait until you get home." She was right. I had a vague memory of how good they made me feel. I went into the bathroom, and stripped off the hospital gown, and the panties. I got my first look at myself in the mirror. I had never seen a girl that young without clothes on, and felt almost like a pedophile, except that it was my own body. I touched my small breasts, and between my legs, enough to feel they were real, but couldn't yet bear to look at myself much. I climbed in the shower, and realized how good the hot water felt. I started using the soap, and it felt good as I washed myself with it. As I washed all over, I started getting funny feelings as I washed my breasts and between my legs. I didn't linger there, as I figured I knew what that meant, but definitely didn't want to go there. There was only the vaguest memory of that in the old memories. I washed my hair, and realized how wonderful the long hair felt, and then wondered what the hell was I thinking? I didn't like my hair long. As a man, it would have made me stand out, and I always tried to look normal. My mom, again, I couldn't help thinking of her like that, had put a nightgown and a pair of panties in the bathroom while I was in the shower. I also realized I had another problem. With the catheter gone, I now had a real need to pee. It wasn't that hard to figure out, and easier since I hadn't dressed yet. I put on the panties, kind of similar to a bikini style in a bathing suit, and pink this time, and a frilly baby doll nightgown, in matching pink. I was sure that she had done this on purpose. She had picked the girliest nightgown and panty set that Tanya had. I didn't care. As long as it got me dressed, and an explanation from her. I brushed my hair, and found that Tanya liked it straight, with bangs in front. It went about halfway down my back, light brown and beautiful. I had slight memories that she had enjoyed mixing some pastels, occasionally light blue or pink, and tried to bury that thought. It didn't help that for being such a bad guy most of the time, my house was done in pastels. I liked a quiet, bright life outside my work, and her tastes seemed to run to the same thing. I walked out of the bathroom, and since Mom and I were alone, I said, "I'll make you a deal. I'll let you call me Tanya, and I'll even call you Mom, but you damn well better tell me what's happening soon." She said, "Okay, but there's one thing you better understand." She slapped me. Not hard enough to do more than hurt a little, but still, I reacted. Part of being a killer meant being trained in unarmed combat, but my new body, and coming out of a coma betrayed me. She caught my foot in the kick I threw at her, and tossed me on the bed. She said, "That one was for free." I'm also a martial arts expert, and it would be interesting to see who is better, but you can see how dumb it would be to try. As for the slap, it was to get your attention. I almost never spanked Tanya. But one thing I won't allow anymore is for you to curse. Next time, it will be a spanking, and as you can see, I can enforce that. I fumed, but eventually said, "Yes, Mom." I then realized that I was even sounding like a young girl, and this got me mad. I said, "All right, now that we have some ground rules established, please tell me what happened." She asked me what my old name was, and I said, "My name is David." She slapped me on the cheek again, this time just a light tap, and said, "Just a reminder, but never refer to yourself again in public as David, or even in private in the present tense. David is dead. Now I will tell you what happened. Do you have any idea what you were hired to steal?" I said, "No, that was a blind job, with money to be deposited into my account in the Caymans, and I was to deliver the book to a blind drop. It came from someone I knew I could trust, but I'll tell you now, they're going to want to know what happened to me, and still want that book. Paying me $1 million was a lot of money." She laughed and said, "I already know almost everything about you. You're a thief who will kill when necessary, and you will also work as a hit man. You hated killing my daughter, and tried to save her when you could have escaped. That is the only reason you still exist. I chewed on that for a while, and then asked, am I hallucinating this? Somehow, I'd been known to do a little LSD, or some mushrooms, when I was in my home, which no one knew about. Did you hypnotize me? She said, you fool, you just have no idea what happened here. I know when you grabbed that book, you recognized that it was in a room full of witches' things. That book is one of the most powerful spell books that ever existed, over 10,000 years old. Its own magic keeps it looking young and new. As to you, when I saw you bent over my daughter, I had no idea that you were trying to save her. I am a very powerful witch. I used a blast of magic to hurl you across the room and to blast you against a wall. Your body was badly injured, as my anger blew any of my normal control. Both you and my daughter were taken to the hospital, where she was pronounced brain dead. It didn't matter, I knew her spirit was now one with the universe. We will see each other again. But, you were dying. Nothing could save you. Then, I remembered one of the most powerful spells in the book, one that would allow a body switch. With one person's spirit gone, and the other, you, probably being an unwilling participant, I doubted it would work. But, I got a very good friend of mine to help. She posed as your wife. Yes, I have great connections for faked paperwork and things myself. She came in with a container to take your spirit, and brought it into my daughter's room. We performed the spell to put you into her body, and then left your spirit asleep for a few days. When I woke you up, I did it from home, so no one would know. So, in a sense, I saved both your life and my daughter's life. I said, Mom, you are truly sick. People would call me a psychopath because of my ease with killing people, but I don't even know what to call you. I expected another slap, or something worse, but she laughed at me instead. I think that scared me even more. She said, if you're wondering, I'm not even mad, because you're probably right. But, at least you're alive, and I have a daughter of sorts. I said, but at least you're going to allow me to return to my body someday, aren't you? She said, you didn't let me finish. When my friend who was posing as your wife took your spirit, you flatlined in your brain. She then produced 2 sets of papers. One was a living will that said that you didn't want to be kept alive if this happened, and 2, that you wanted to be cremated when you died, within 72 hours according to your personal beliefs. That's one reason we kept you asleep here for a few days. There might have been a chance that you would return to your old body if we did the spell wrong. As you can guess, it went right. I said, you mean I'm trapped in here for good? She said, that's right. You're Tanya for as long as you live. And in case you decide to kill yourself, I'll wait until you get home to show you why you don't want to do that. Well, visiting time is over. Have fun thinking about all of this. She did at least sound as if it was a mix of sadness, along with the enjoyment. As for me, I turned towards the wall, and let the tears come. Damn these female hormones, and damn this girl's body. The nurse finally came in and gave me something so I could sleep. My dreams were a little about my old self, but I was starting to see more of my new self, too. The last one I remembered I blocked out the end of. It was about me, in a t-shirt and jeans. I did look nice, and was beginning to show some shape. I was walking into a movie theater with some other kids to see the new Harry Potter movie. When we sat down, I sat with a boy that I knew somehow was named Peter. He put his arm across the seat behind me, and I leaned into him a little. The movie got a little boring, so we were looking at each other. He leaned in to kiss me, and, when I woke up, I was in a cold sweat. I did manage to go back to sleep, but it was a while. Kissing a boy? That was sick. I had breakfast, and then my mom came. It was Saturday, so she had a couple of friends with her. Friends of Tanya's. Damn, I was having trouble with the personalities blending more. One of them was a cute girl about my age, who ran up and hugged me in the bed, and I remembered her name was Linda, and she was my best friend. The other was Peter. I didn't know how to react, although part of me was excited to see him. He came and sat next to the chair I was sitting on, and held my hand. It felt comforting, although I wish it didn't. I told them, Mom says I can go home tomorrow. I am so ready to get out of here. Some of the speech patterns were flowing out. It was weird to have my own mind, but to talk like Tanya. We sat and talked for a while, and then they left. Peter said, that new movie we were talking about seeing is out on Saturday. Do you want to go? I didn't know what to say. I had to say something. I finally said, I don't know if I'll feel up to it by then. We'll see how it goes. Since my mom was out of the room, Peter went to kiss me, but I only let him kiss my cheek. I was shocked that I even did that, but it was a mixed reaction from the old and new me. They left. Mom came back in. She saw me staring out the window, with tears in my eyes, and said, I know this is hard. But, believe me, the only alternative you have is much worse. I wasn't sure that I wanted to think about the alternative, but I already had a pretty good idea. She said, I can see it in your eyes, you already know. Your only way out is to kill yourself, or at least the body you're in. But, you need to think about where you will go when you die. I said, come on, maybe you used your powers to send your daughter somewhere. But, I don't believe in any afterlife. I'm just doing this because I hate to not exist anymore. She smiled a smile I didn't particularly like, one that my memories from Tanya told me that made her nervous. She said, you think you know everything? You should have already learned. You know nothing. I will show you just how wrong you are. She raised her hands, and it seemed as if we were surrounded by smoke. There was some kind of pop, and then the smoke vanished. The hospital room was gone, and we were in a forest. I was still in the nightie, with no shoes, but it didn't hurt my feet at all to walk. We walked down a trail to a rather large town. Everything was a weird kind of shiny. I actually took Mom's hand, and it wasn't all the part of me that was Tanya. She didn't react, just accepted it. We walked into the town, which looked like something out of the Middle Ages. Suddenly, a voice called out to Mom. She turned around and we saw a young lady of about 30 come running to us. She ran straight into Mom's arms. She said, don't you know what a horrible risk you're taking by coming here, especially by bringing him? Mom said, if the goddess has truly blessed what we have done, then she will allow. I had no choice. He would never have believed otherwise. I guess I already knew the answer, but I had to ask, you are me, Tanya, in around 20 years, aren't you? She smiled and said, yes, I am equivalent to 30, and will be forever. Everyone comes to that age when they come, here, or goes back to it. And of course, I know who you are. I know you think I hate you, even though you haven't said it. She was right, I couldn't see how she could feel anything else. I started to cry. I said, this place is so beautiful. I almost wish I had died myself, so I could come here. She said, no, don't ever think that. You are being given a second chance to redeem yourself. Mom is going to show you the alternative in a moment. Just know this. I saw you try to save me, and will always remember that here, long after I forget that you killed me. We are allowed to pray here, and sometimes look after you a little. But, when you feel like you know something, or that you have to do something, it will be me. If you do as you must, and redeem yourself, I will see you up here again, and this time it will be forever. She hugged her mom, and even gave me one, and kissed me on the cheek, and then turned around and went back into town. I was crying as I looked at Mom and said, "Please take me back. I can't stand to look at this if I can't be here yet." She said, "I wished you had learned your lesson for sure, but I'm afraid that you need to see the other alternative." The same smoke came up again, but this time as it dissipated, I only saw darkness, lit by some flames. Mom said, "Yes, this is a form of hell, but personalized for you." I realized I was in my old body, and then I was suddenly hit by waves of agony like nothing I had never experienced. I looked around, and saw all of the people I had killed, at least the ones that were worthy of being here. She said, "Not all of the people you killed deserved it. You're being mainly punished because of them. Also, because of the fact that you are a murderer and a thief." I realized where the agony was coming from. I was impaled on a stake. I had seen this on a special about Vlad the Impaler. They put that stake in a very bad spot, and it would penetrate until it killed you. But, here, I was stuck on it, but there would be no death. I was also being flayed by the people I had killed. She said, "They take turns, so that someone is always here, then go back to their own punishments." Now, do you still want to kill yourself? I screamed as I said, "No. Please, just get me out of here. I will do whatever I need to do." The smoke came up, and again, we were back in the hospital room. The pain was gone, but I swear, I could still smell the smoke. Mom grabbed me in a hug and held me for a while, and I just held her. Finally she said, "Time for me to go home, and finish getting ready for you to come home tomorrow. Besides, I feel as if you're getting a visitor who wants to talk to you alone. Listen to what they say. I somehow know it's a matter of life and death, maybe for both of us." She hugged me and left. I took a shower and changed into a pair of pajamas. They were still obviously girly, but it bothered me less, plus I was making the decision for myself this time. My mom had left a book Tanya had been reading. It actually helped bring up some good memories for me to read it, remembering what she had already read. Plus, it was a Nancy Drew novel. I remembered reading The Hardy Boys, and yeah, even a few Nancy Drew books, when I was a kid. I think I might have nodded off a little when I heard someone call my name. I woke up in kind of a haze, and saw someone standing in a bright light. When she stepped out, she was still glowing. It was the older Tanya. I wanted to jump up and hug her, but she said, "Not when I'm like this. I'm just a spiritual manifestation. The goddess doesn't like us doing this, but considers you a special case." I thought about that a minute and said, "Why me? I am sure there are a lot of people in hell who deserve it more." She said, "There is a supernatural reason that I can't yet see, but a natural one that I can. You still have the instincts and some of the abilities you had as David. I don't know if it is a cosmic coincidence or something else that you and I have the same abilities that come naturally to some people. They will allow you to do things from before that you will need to be able to do. Protect yourself and Mom at all costs. She has incredibly powerful magic, but that can make her cocky at times. She also has a bit of darkness in her that you've already seen. Help her with that, and it will help you deal with your own. Find the balance between being me, but keeping the part of David you need. I will drop hints occasionally about that from time to time. Know that since where I am now is pure love, I love this strange combination of myself and you. Then, she was gone. I realized that I was crying and didn't try to stop. At this moment, I knew I would live as Tanya, be Tanya, and do whatever it took. I went back to sleep. But, during the night, I had a dream. In it, some of the same type of people that I used to be came to the hospital. They left a note on the table next to my bed. When I woke up, I realized that the dream was true. Apparently something, or someone, thank you Tanya, had kept me asleep. If I had seen them leaving the note, there might have been dire consequences. I read the note and called my mom and told her she needed to come and get me right away. I had her call the nurse and have the doctor release me early, saying it was a family emergency. My mom arrived with some clothes, just as the doctor left. The nurse went to fill out the paperwork as I changed into girls' clothes for the first time. As I figured, the bra would have been interesting, except that apparently I had a few front hook bras, one of which Mom had brought. I slid on fresh panties, got the bra on, and then the t-shirt and shorts. She brought me a pair of sneakers, in case we had to run. I showed her the note and she read it, Mrs. Jackson, as you can see, your magic protects your house, but we can get to your daughter anytime we want. You have 2 days to call the phone number below, and arrange to hand the book over to us, or you, and especially your daughter will be watching over your shoulders all the time. I looked at Mom and said, what now? My mom saw the obvious panic on my face and said, for knowing about the magic in the book, they are being awful cocky. I think they don't really have a clue in what they are dealing with. I said, yeah, but I do know what we're dealing with. There are some extremely bad people here, and that's just the ones who are the hired hands. I don't even know about the ones who hired them. That's your area. She said, I know you don't understand, but we have protection you don't understand. They could get close to you, but they couldn't have harmed you. We have quite a while before the really dangerous ones are coming after us. I said, if that is true, then how did the old me manage to harm Tanya? That doesn't make any sense. She looked a little perplexed at that, and said, I'm not sure. There is more at work here than we know. But, we need to work on figuring that out, too. I just know that the goddess that we believe in is in control. I said, about that, what's up? If I ever believed in anything, it was in being a Christian. But, is there more? Even as I asked it, I knew there was. It was on the edge of my mind, but I couldn't tell what. She said, I know what you're thinking, and I will let you think of it in your own time. For now, let's go home. For now, we're safe there. We went out, and got into the van. I remembered it now. I thought that its kind of purple color was ugly. The town we drove through was more familiar than as if I had only been through it at night, which I had been before when I was David. I saw the junior high school I went to, a mall I loved to hang out in, and other places. We came to the house where I had died. Suddenly, I didn't want to go in. I could see clearly in my mind my last sight there trying to save Tanya, then Mom coming in and blasting me against the wall. Then, I saw it from Tanya's viewpoint coming into the house, and finding me stealing the book, attacking, and me knocking her back against the wall. Then, me being hurled back against the wall, as she lost consciousness, then died. Mom could tell what I was thinking, and said, that is one of my worst moments. If I hadn't stopped you, and reacted so badly, would Tanya still be here? I drained my magic temporarily in that blast. I couldn't try to heal her. Maybe not completely letting her go is revenge on myself, not just you. I had forgotten that this wasn't just about love on her part. I remembered what Tanya had told me last night about watching her. I put my hand on her shoulder and said, "Mom, whatever the reason, the part of me that is Tanya loves you, and you have to remember that. You can work through this. I don't know why that book is so important, or that I'm so important in this, but you need to hold it together." She put her hand over mine, and clasped it. She said, "You're right. Unfortunately, like most powerful witches, I have a light and dark side. I almost pursued the dark side, until I met your father. He was the brightest of the good warlocks. I barely held it together after what happened to him." I said, "This brings up one question I already had. Why does Tanya have no memory of her father? And now another question: if you both were so powerful, why does she have no magic at all?" She said, "As for her father, I will tell you when or if you need to know. As to the magic, none of us has any idea. Not me, or my coven. You should be very powerful, but have never shown any sign. It just happens that way sometimes. Maybe you'll figure it out." We entered the house, which looked as if nothing had ever happened. I walked through it, seeing it through new eyes, but with Tanya's memories. It was a nice 3-bedroom house. The 3rd bedroom was the room I had been in where the book was stored. I walked from it into what Mom said was mine. It was beautiful. It had a lot of stuffed animals, but almost all of them were dogs, or wolves. There were a couple of wolf posters on the walls as well. I had a beautiful wolf carving on my dresser. I looked at my mom and said, "Did you know that this is something I loved from my old life, or did Tanya love them too?" She said she loved wolves. I took her to a living desert zoo in Carlsbad, New Mexico once, and she saw the wolf pack they have there. She and the pack saw each other, and then she sat outside the fence for hours. They weren't hostile or aggressive towards her. I think if she could have gone inside, she would have, and been perfectly safe. She told me that she once saw a wolf in the woods in northern NM, and that it let her get close. That picture in the frame there is one she took. I looked, and saw a picture set in the woods, of a wolf about 100 feet away. He took off right after she got the picture, as if he was waiting for her to get the shot. As strange as this sounds, it seemed normal to her. I told her, "Not only doesn't it sound strange, it's another connection. I used to have a part wolf, part husky hybrid, and have seen a couple of wolves in the wild. I have also been to that zoo in Carlsbad, and had a similar experience. Maybe there is some kind of connection there. I'll keep it in mind." She left me to explore my room. I had my own bathroom, with lots of girl stuff. I had a lot of books, mostly mystery and fantasy, but some books on wolves, along with a couple of famous photo books of wolves that I used to have. I went to the dresser, and next to the wolf sculpture was a box. Apparently, I went in for wolves here, too. I put on a matching necklace with a wolf on it, a bracelet that had a prominent stone of turquoise with a wolf on it, and an ankle bracelet. I thought about earrings. I had never had them before, and someone, I guess Mom, had put studs in to protect my ears while I was in a coma. I called to her, and asked her to help me with them. I traded them out for a pair of dangling earrings that had, you guessed it, tiny wolves on the end. I checked out the drawers, and found that I liked pastel-colored underwear, instead of simple white, and favored nylon over cotton. I must have been wearing one of the few pair of cotton panties I had. I could change soon enough. There were a mix of shorts and t-shirts in the other drawers, and pajamas. I went to the closet and found some dresses, blouses, and skirts hanging, along with pants folded on hangers. I apparently was neat, both as Tanya and David. One thing I saw was that the bed was very comfortable looking. I lay down on it for a couple of minutes and realized what was wrong. I could never stand sleeping without the top and one side being against the wall. I called my mom in and explained. She said, "I understand, and I guess that we can make some concessions to the old you." We moved the bed against the wall. I put the stuff that I had brought home from the hospital into a laundry bin she had, and then sat down at a desk that was in one corner. The part near the bathroom was a makeup area. I was glad I didn't need to worry about that now, and hoped Tanya's memories would kick in when I needed them. The other part, near the door, had a laptop on it. It had the top modem on it, and was the latest model. I booted it up, and when the password prompt came up, Tanya's memories helped out. She had a lot of friends on Facebook, and a lot of videos saved on YouTube. I hoped I wouldn't have to spend too much time listening to some of these current groups. I looked at some of her personal videos, and saw something I hadn't remembered yet. She was very good at two things, one of which we shared. She was an expert swimmer, like me, even at 12. She was also a very good ice skater. Not any competition level, but she obviously very good. I was so engrossed with the computer that I didn't hear the doorbell. Mom knocked on the door, and when I opened it, Linda was there with her. Linda said, "Your mom thought I could help you feel better by coming over. I hope it's okay." I looked at my mom, and must have looked nervous. Mom said, "Don't worry, I think Linda's just the person to help you recover from your shock." I said okay, and Linda came in. She sat on the bed, and we just looked at each other for a couple of minutes. Finally, she said, "Obviously, your mom didn't tell you anything. The lady who helped your mom with the spell which saved your life is my mom. Tanya and I were best friends. I want to hate you, but I had a visit from Tanya last night myself. She told me who you really were, and how you did try to save her. I will help you." I said, "But what can you do, really? You're just 12, yourself." Linda gestured with her hand, and suddenly I was floating about 3 feet above the chair. She spun me around a couple of times, and then gently set me down again. Oddly enough, it didn't scare me. She said, "I used to play with Tanya all of the time like that when my powers came out. They aren't much, but they should help protect you." I laughed, and said, "I see your point. I definitely need to keep an open mind." She said, "Anyway, I thought I would see if you would like to do something that both the old and new you like to do. Go swimming?" I admit, this seemed like fun, but all I had seen in the closet were a few bikinis. Wearing them outside, for the whole world to see, made me very nervous. Linda could tell what I was thinking, and said, "You're going to have to do it eventually. This way, we just go to the pool at my house, play around, and hit the hot tub afterwards. It will give you a little time to work your muscles without undue stress." It did sound good to me. She went back into the living room while I took off the jewelry, and then got undressed. I put on the bikini, but I couldn't help thinking how little it actually covered. Top and bottom were yellow, with green trim. At least it wasn't a string bikini. I would never have been able to leave the house with that on. We decided to walk the couple of blocks to her house. I brought my cell phone with me in case I got weak. I had on a t-shirt over the bikini, and sneakers. We walked about a block, to where we had to turn, and then were out of sight of my house. A van was parked by the curb. A couple of men were sitting in it. They started up the van and slowly followed us. We took off running until we reached Linda's house. I called 911 as soon as we reached the porch, but as she was unlocking the door, they just drove by, smiling and waving at us. As soon as 911 connected, I thought better of it. What would we tell them? I couldn't think of a single thing that would be believable. We went into Linda's house, and she held me while I sat and shook. How was I supposed to defend myself as a 12-year-old? Her mom called my mom, who rushed over. She said, "I didn't want for this to happen, but I guess we have no other choice. I know you know how to use this as David, we're just going to see if the instincts carry over." She pulled her hand out of her purse and was holding a tiny revolver. I knew what it was. A Ruger .225 shot. It wasn't any bigger than a lot of Derringers. I knew where it had come from. I said, "This used to be mine, didn't it? You had to have gotten it from my old house." She said, "Yes, it seemed prudent at the time. I wasn't going to give it to you until I was sure you needed it and wouldn't use it on me." That did make me smile a little, but I was barely away from a full panic. At least with school out, I didn't have to worry about carrying it there. I said, "What now? We can't just react anymore. We need to start thinking of some way to go after them." She said, "I have an idea, but first, we need to go somewhere and see if you're still any good with that." That wasn't as hard as it might sound in normal America. We were in SW, Colorado, in the Four Corners area. Their little coven had managed to come here and even grow in an area that was as remote and huge as this. The Navajo, whose land was near, respected them. Anyway, you could drive a couple miles out of town in any direction and find somewhere to shoot. We set up out of town a ways, and it turned out that with almost no kickback, I had no trouble getting back to being good with it. I wasn't great, but I could place my shots. Someone was going to get a very nasty surprise. We went to a local cafe for dinner. I was still getting used to Tanya's smaller appetite. I was also very conscious that I was wearing a bikini under a t-shirt. It made me even more nervous that some of the men were paying more attention to me than Linda. Even though we were the same age, she was definitely taller and looked at least a year older. I thought she was prettier, too. But I knew the kind of people that were out there. In my old life, a few of the contracts were hits on some of them. Those ones, I'm sure, were the ones in hell. I felt a thrust that could have only come from the other Tanya, telling me that I was right. If someone like that started paying too much attention, don't hesitate to shoot. I wasn't there with this second chance to go out that way. We finally went home, dropping Linda and her mom on the way. Mom took me into what she now told me was the spell room and cast what looked like a simple spell. She said, "This is a protection spell. It is better than an alarm system. No one can get in magically or physically. If they somehow made it, the spell would wake us up." I felt better. I went into my room and turned on my laptop. I knew I could possibly use some of my old sources, but since I was dead, it wouldn't exactly be easy. I called Mom into the room and asked, "I don't suppose any of your friends are hackers? I need to hit some of my old sources, but obviously no one can be able to trace it back." She smiled and said, "Of course. I'll have him come right over." I played on the computer, exploring some of Tanya's interests, when I heard the doorbell. A minute later, my mom came to my door with a man who smiled and said, "I hear you have a problem." "Don't worry, I don't want to know details. My wife is part of the coven. If it's connected to that, I'm fine with helping you. I'll give you a setup that no one will ever trace back here. Mom and I left him to work. We went into the living room and she told me, he doesn't know about you. He is just a normal person who loves his family and is helping because he can, and we are friends. I had never had friends like this, at least not in my adult life. Seeing what I had been missing was starting to hurt. I had just started looking for something else to read when I smelled popcorn popping. I went into the living room, where Mom was about to settle in. She asked, "Do you want to watch a movie? Surely there are some that will appeal to you." I told her, "Actually, I want to talk. I know I don't deserve the chance you've given me, or that you seem to care, but I want you to know more than just the very basics that you have figured out about me." She said, "I would like that. You are growing on me, and not just because you're in my daughter's body. I wonder what made you what you were." I said, "It's a heck of a story. I don't know what kind of home you grew up in, but mine was pure hell. I didn't always look like I did when I died. I was fat and just plain homely when I was growing up. I had 2 sisters, one of them was a year or 2 younger than me, the other was 6 years younger. I didn't realize until much later the connection between how much older my father was than me, and the difference between his age and my mom's. They had me when he was 20, and she was 13. She was 12 when he got her pregnant. He had to marry her to avoid going to prison. They both hated me and abused me from a young age. Because of my size, no one cared about me, since I wasn't popular. Then, my first sister, Kristen, came along. I don't know what he did for partners when my mom got to be too old for his tastes, but she started to grow at 11, and, well, you know the story. There were a few nights when she would come in and crawl into my bed, hoping I would protect her, but I couldn't do anything. Then, it happened. I went to school one day, and my mom and dad insisted she stay at home. They called her in sick. She was found the next day, in the park, the apparent victim of a rapist murderer. They investigated what looked like older trauma, but when nothing seemed to turn up with my youngest sister, they didn't pursue it. I was scared to death that I was next. They watched me like a hawk. Then, a couple of years later, when they thought it was safe, it became my youngest sister Paige's turn. I was ready to graduate and move out, but didn't really have anywhere to go. I was continually beaten and told I would die badly if I told. Since my dad, and probably my mom, were obviously killers, I didn't know where to go. I finally ran away from home. I left in the middle of the night and immediately hit the road. I knew I was better off going somewhere else. I finally wound up in Albuquerque after a few years. I had done some things that were terrible to survive. Not murder yet, but just what I allowed to be done to me, and did to others sexually. But I found a program there. It was a place that allowed me to get a place off of the streets. This part is my fault. They gave me a chance to become something, but it was a roommate situation. My roommate was a professional thief. He took a liking to me, and because he had had some kind of accident, I finally didn't have to worry about sex to get something. I took care of everything, cleaning, cooking, etc., and he taught me everything he knew. He was old enough to be my father, and told me that he had lost a son to drugs a few years ago. Then, it happened. Someone killed him. It was for the money we had from the last theft he had taken me on, and a small stash of pot. I don't know if it was the years of abuse or genetics, but it didn't take me long to figure out who did it. One thing I had been working on while in the program was a free martial arts program. I had also lost a lot of weight over the last few years. I confronted my friend's killer and beat him to death. I knew enough to take care of any evidence and traded some of the loot from our stash for an alibi. It was fairly easy after the first time. With a knack for stealth that was instinctive, I was already quickly becoming a great thief. This started allowing me to take a job from a local gangbanger to hit a rival who was impossible to get to. Let's just say that he was one of the people I saw in hell. Then, a local collector who had heard of me offered me a big chunk of cash, plus expenses, to go out of town after a piece of art in another collector's collection. That was my first innocent life. I didn't go after him on purpose, but he surprised me, and well, no witnesses. Anyway, it just snowballed after that. My conscience got hardened. I killed the first woman in a robbery, but then I decided I might as well take some contracts on them as well. And believe me, they weren't all innocent by any means. Then, after years of ignoring my parents, I got a contract in my hometown. I was to go after a prostitute who was scheduled to testify against her pimp, who was powerful in his gang. When I found her, I found to my horror that it was my sister Paige. She didn't recognize me. I had had plastic surgery, and with all of the weight loss, she had no idea. I couldn't just kill her. I told her who I was. She was a victim and family, not a bad person. But she cried and told me that I would be granting her mercy. She begged me to do it. I didn't believe in God or anything else, but I knew if I killed her, it would be the end of me inside. I left. But I found out the next morning, before I left town, that she had jumped out of the window to her death. I went to my old home I was raised in to confront my parents at last. I broke into the house in the middle of the night and searched the house. I kept thinking I heard crying and went down to the basement. There, I found a 13-year-old girl handcuffed to a bed. She was naked. I quickly covered her with a blanket when she started to scream and told her she was going to be all right. I asked her how long she had been there. She said it had been a couple of days. She had already been raped by my dad, but there was no way to let her clean up at the moment. I didn't have time to look for keys to the cuffs, but I did see bolt cutters on my dad's workbench. Her clothes were on a pile on a chair, so I turned my back while she got dressed. I told her to go outside while I took care of something. She said, "You're going to kill them, aren't you?" "If you are, I have a right to watch. I'm not the first, even among my friends. They're killers who have been doing this for a long time." I may have been being rough, but I thought she was right. I brought a couple of pair of handcuffs that I found with me, and we went upstairs. My parents were both there. I kicked the end of the bed hard, and they both woke up to find a gun in each of their faces. I forced them to let the girl handcuff them to the bed, and through each other's arms. My dad said, "Who the hell are you? You shouldn't have let her go. You don't know who you're messing with." I told them in some very nasty language what I thought of them, and then told them who they were dealing with. I had developed a code name in the underworld, the Ghost. They had heard of that. But then I told them the rest. "I'm also David, your son. I've come to call your number up for Kristen, and Paige, and this girl, and all the rest." They asked if I was getting paid by someone for this, and I turned to the girl and asked her if she had any change. She pulled a few pennies and other change out of her pocket. I took 2 of the pennies out of the change and gave her back the rest. I told her, "Congratulations, "You just hired me to kill them." I didn't know how she would react, but she gave a little smile. They began to yell and struggle, but I pulled out my .22 and shot him in the groin, and her in the stomach. I then said, "Here's an advance on where you'll be shortly." I had brought a gas can up from the basement and poured it around the bed. I lit a match and took off. I knew that the girl didn't need to see what came next. I found out from her where she lived and took her home. When they heard a sanitized version of what happened, the parents conveniently forgot what I looked like. I guess it didn't matter, as on paper, David didn't exist anymore, but it felt good that I had done some good and saved someone. Mom thought about that and said, "Maybe that's part of why you're being given a second chance, the people you got justice for." I finished the story with a few more sentences. There really wasn't much more. It was a few years later that I was hired to steal the book, and now, here we were. Mom's friend who had been working on the computer came into the room while we were watching a movie. Believe it or not, Nim's Island. I'd always had a taste for really good family films, and that was one of my favorites. He said, "I've finished. There is virtually no way that anyone can backtrack anything to you here." He then went home. I was ready to jump right in, although I felt really tired, but Mom said, "You are too tired. Off to bed, now. You can do it in the morning." I started to protest, but realized that she was right and knew what this body could handle. I went to bed and to sleep fairly easily. I don't remember all my dreams, but more memories of Tanya came through. For some strange reason, it wasn't really bothering me anymore. I woke up in the morning, ready to tackle the day. Mom made breakfast, and then I went to the computer. I navigated my way through the new security, and then checked to see if an old acquaintance was online. He was. I had used his services before, but I never completely trusted him. I was pretty sure that he played both sides at times. He was shocked to hear from me. He said, "Dude, I don't know where you totally disappeared to, but the people who hired you didn't buy that story that you just died and were cremated. They are looking for you." I told him, "You wouldn't believe what happened if I told you." Knowing that Mom had cleaned out my accounts and had the money stashed, I told him, "I will pay you $50,000 to find out who is behind this." He said, "It doesn't matter what you pay me. I already know that it was contracted through the Denver mob, but by someone very powerful, so powerful that it scares the crap out of them. I don't know what you got yourself into, but if it scares these people, it's very bad." I signed off and told Mom what I had found. I could she was wrestling with something, and finally said, "I've never told you about Tanya's father." I looked at Mom and said, "He was a warlock, wasn't he?" She said, "He was. He was so powerful, and such a force for good. He may have been the most powerful good warlock alive. But he knew that the evil ones would always be looking to kill him. If they couldn't do that, they would look for a way to turn him to the evil side. I don't know the complete story of what happened, but I'll tell you what I managed to figure out. We had been on a constant vigil for so long that we had to take a break. Normally, where we went was neutral ground. The old cliff dwellings south of here were occupied by a people that had been powerful with magic. We, like everyone else, have no idea why they left. But they did cast a spell that no great battle could be fought there with magic. It was wonderful. Tanya was conceived during the time that we were there. But then another came, an evil witch and warlock. We spent days, first ignoring each other, but then Mike started spending time by himself, and then away from me for hours on end. Then I woke up one morning, and they were all gone. I was groggy from an unnaturally deep sleep. I hadn't been drugged, it was magic. I came home, and the coven helped me as I had you. It has been odd that in all this time, he didn't try for the book of magic that he knew was here. I found out that with his power, he rose to the top warlock of this area's evil covens. They are at war with the other areas for total power. I asked, then why haven't they gone for the book before? And another question occurs to me. How could Tanya be the daughter of such two powerful people and have no powers? Her memories are quite clear on that she has never seen any at all, even that she hasn't told you about. She said, I have a bad feeling that the two things are connected. You're going to have to keep your eyes open to try for opportunities to use your powers, and be ready. Linda can help you. You guys will have to spend some time together for now, and you'll have to act like Tanya. That will be hard, but she can help. Now we have to go to a ceremony. It's like church for us, so I want you to dress nicely. I went into my bathroom and took a shower. It was difficult to get used to seeing that body in the mirror, even though it was now mine. Having straight hair made it easier to brush, along with the fact that apparently Mom considered me too young to use makeup. I went to the drawers and got out a pair of panties and put them on. These were one thing I definitely liked. For some reason nylon felt way better than cotton ever did. I still struggled with the bra. I put on a pair of pink tights and a powder blue dress. I looked in the mirror and then went to meet Mom. She said, "You are very pretty. I was wondering if you would even voluntarily get into living like this, and you obviously have. I am so glad." I didn't tell her that the memories of Tanya took over at times like that. It not only helped with doing things, but carried over into my enjoying some of it. Making her happy was okay now, for some reason. I wasn't doing this out of fear of the hell I had experienced, and a desire to go to heaven. As a thief and a hitman, always on the run, it had been a lot of years since I had some kind of life. Even if this was it, all of the new experiences weren't overwhelming me anymore. We walked to the meeting in another coven member's house. There were a mix of men, women, and children. My mom turned out to be the one in charge. Most of the stuff went straight over my head, but during one of their meditations/prayers, I did feel something deep inside. It stirred for a moment, and then was gone. I opened my eyes for a moment, to see if someone had felt something somehow, and found Linda looking back at me. She mouthed the word later, and we went back to meditation. After the service, I asked Mom if I could walk home with Linda. She said it was okay, but to be very careful. I opened my purse and showed her that I had my .22 pistol in it, and we took off. When we were away from the others, I asked her, "I can tell you sensed something. How did you do that?" She said, "For some reason, you aren't remembering everything yet. You and I were joined at birth, not as soulmates in marriage, but as sisters. What you felt was the first stirrings of magic. I haven't told your mom, for my own reasons, but you have power deep inside you that is beyond belief. It will come out when it is needed." I asked her, "Why not tell Mom?" She said, "We need to keep it a secret. There is a mole from the dark side in our group. Their power is so great that they hide the darkness behind good. That is the greater threat." Then I heard a thought, or a feeling in my head again. It had to be from Tanya herself. It told me to keep my eyes open who I was might put me in a unique position to sniff out the mole. She dropped me off at my house, and then I changed into a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. I got back on the computer and started looking for other sources. I worked for hours, only interrupted by Mom for lunch and supper. I had checked out everyone remotely connected with the coven. I was sure that the mole had to have made a mistake somewhere, as I well knew, no matter how good you are, there is no such thing as a perfect crime. I finally shut down the computer and decided to take a run before bed. I had to do something to stretch out my stiffness. I changed into a crop top and running shorts and told Mom what I was going to do. I showed her that I had the pistol in my fanny pack and took off. I stayed close to the house, but still had the feeling that I was being watched. There were only the normal vehicles on the street, but my sixth sense from when I was a thief just wouldn't quit. Then, being ready paid off. I saw a man run out from between two houses, talking on what was obviously a radio. The van that Linda and I had seen before came racing up the street. I stopped, ducked low, and pulled out the gun. I knew a lot of these guys didn't have the scruples I used to have. I brought the gun up, but the man only laughed. I said, "Trust me, I'll shoot you and go home and have a good night's sleep tonight." He said, "Tough talk for a little girl. If I had the chance, I would take it away and use it on you. But they want you in one piece." I heard the van door open behind me. I knew I had only seconds, but I didn't want to complicate life. I decided not to go for a non-fatal wound if I could, and shot him in the knee. He screamed and went down. I turned, and the man was getting out of the van. I took a second, and then shot him in the knee as well. I fell to my knees and started crying. It was play acting, but had Tanya's emotions to play on. I told the cops that I had taken the gun out from behind one of their belts when they grabbed me. That story was horrible, even to me, except that I saw that the lead detective was a man who had been at the coven meeting earlier. My mom arrived and showed all of the parental concern you'd expect. None of us were worth a hoot as actors, but then again, as I said earlier, the coven had a lot of the main people here in town. Mom took me home, and I went straight to bed. I was wearing a short nightgown. It was something I was getting used to, because Tanya had liked it. It made me feel good inside. Then, I did something I hadn't done through all of this. I curled up in bed with one of her stuffed animals, one that looked like a wolf. Mom came in and sat by the bed. She asked, "How do you really feel?" I know David must not be traumatized, but then, I don't think it's David curled up with that animal either. I started to cry, and for the first time, didn't care. I said, "I know." More and more of Tanya, through her memories, are becoming part of me. I don't even mind anymore. I let that side control my clothing choices, and find that even the David side is happy with them. Being curled up like this is as comforting for me as it was for her. She said, "Do you know why you are so upset now, after all of the other people you've killed?" I said, I had that glimpse of heaven, and all that that could be. The first thing I decided in my heart and mind was that I didn't want to kill anyone ever again. I came too close to having to do it tonight. She said, "Even if you were to kill, if it is self-defense, which is different. Now, though, we have to deal with the issue that you're not armed. I hope that from now on, I can use magic to protect you." She kissed me on the cheek, then left me alone. I didn't go to sleep easily that night. When I did, Tanya came to me in the dream. I knew it was really her, not just a dream. She said, "This is not a dream. You are in graver danger than you know. You felt a twinge of magic earlier. The goddess has come to let you know why Tanya's power was suppressed. In a week, you will turn 13. When that happens, you will be able to activate your full ability, such as never been seen before. There is a reason why the most powerful witch and warlock were brought together to conceive you. The key to your power is in the Book of Magic. Find the correct spell. Even now, I don't know what it is. And beware the mole. I can't tell their identity either. They are extremely cleverly concealed. I asked her, isn't there any clue? She said, go with your instincts. Both you and the Tanya left in you loved mysteries. I was on the track of trying to find that person, playing Nancy Drew, even when I died. I knew I was missing something obvious, but never figured it out. She left me alone, and I went to sleep. I slept soundly for the rest of the night. I didn't have a great revelation as to the identity of the mole. I woke up, feeling refreshed. I had breakfast with Mom, and then Linda came by. She told me that the kids were going out to an area outside of town that had been turned into a neutral zone. It was the detective from the Coven's day off, and he would be watching for our safety. I put on a one-piece bathing suit and a pair of shorts. The hardest part was getting used to not only riding a bicycle after years of not being on one, but I relied on Tanya's reflexes. We took off. When we got to the area, we went swimming. We then ate a lunch we had brought with us. Afterwards, we sat around talking. All of the kids with us were from the Coven. They offered to see what they could do to help bring out the magic powers. I told them, I'm scared of this side of it. But, since this seems to be the only way, we should do it. They gathered around me in a circle, joining hands, and started to chant something. They had told me to close my eyes, so I did. Nothing happened at first, but then I felt the same feeling I had felt at the Coven meeting. But, this time it was stronger. They finished, and Linda asked me if there was anything I felt I could do. I said, I don't know. I don't have any idea what to try. Linda said, how about something basic? Why don't you try to move something? I looked over at a rock, and felt something stir within me, but it only moved a couple of inches. I was amazed, but part of me expected more after all of the dramatics. We took another swim, soaked up a little sun to dry off, and then took off for home. I didn't think that they would try again so soon, but when we came around a bend in the road, they were there. Fortunately, the others knew the area. We took off down the hill next to the road, landing on the next switchback. We were riding hard when the van came up behind us. I knew they wouldn't hurt me, but would do anything to others to get to me. I told them to go down the hill again, while I stayed on the road. I rode for a few minutes, but then realized that I was going nowhere. I saw a big pile of rocks on the side of the road opposite the downslope. It looked ready to slide downhill, with a little help. If only I could get up there and move it. Then, it happened faster than I could think. The rocks started coming down, fast. Not a slow push, but falling hard. They wound up on top of the van. The men had managed to get out, but the van was smashed. Now that I knew I could do something like that, an urge to kill all three of them welled up inside of me. Apparently, they saw it in my eyes, because they took off running. I gestured towards some rocks to flatten them with, and then suddenly I had a thought thrust through my head. All it did was scream no. I knew it had come from Tanya in heaven. I shook off whatever had made me almost kill, and jumped on my bicycle, and took off home as fast as I could. I ran into the police on the way up the hill. They took me home. I found Linda and Mom waiting for me. They said that the others had made it home okay. I told them what had happened and thought I saw Linda smile. That made me nervous. Did the mole have to be an adult? It was something to think about. She went home after we talked about how much we were going to miss each other. Mom and I had decided that it was time to disappear for a week or so. We decided to try hiding among a huge bunch of people and went to San Francisco. She had never been there, but I got to play a combination of fascinated little girl and tour guide. I had been there several times on jobs, and a couple of times I took a break and played tourist. We walked across the Golden Gate, hung out at Fisherman's Wharf, even went to the Sausalito Flea Market, one of my favorites. Visiting Alcatraz reminded me how close I came to winding up in a couple of super max prisons, myself. Then, we flew home. We arrived the day before my birthday. I wore my first dress. It was a thigh-length gray dress that had ruffles on the sleeves that I wore with my first pair of heels. Security was extremely high. We knew they wouldn't attack in any size physical force, and witches and warlocks from all over the country came for my 13th and for protection. Although we were all anticipating trouble, none came. The problem was, nothing else came. I felt no other powers or level of magic manifest itself. Everyone brought some gifts, including downloads from my MP3. The problem was, Tanya had always listened to what was new and current. I had to get some Eagles or Fleetwood Mac on there soon, or I would go nuts. Mom made sure there was lots of food and fun. When it was time for everyone to leave, I changed into another crop top and a pair of shorts. I got on the computer and made one last attempt to figure out who the mole was. They were the key to finding the man behind everything, Tanya's father. I still didn't have any luck. Then, a suspicion hit me. There was something so wrong here that there might be only one explanation. But, if the person I was thinking of was the mole, then everything was changed. And, I knew our next destination to hide out would be a trap. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and found what I was looking for. I really needed to get a look at the Book of Magic. The phone rang, and I heard my mom pick it up. After a couple of minutes, she came in, and told me that we had to leave now. I threw a few things in a suitcase, and then my mom told me that I needed to pack a special dress for the trip, as it was a formal, and she had a surprise for me. I told her, I'm ready to go. We drove north on back roads, taking as few route changes as we had to. It didn't take long to see where we were going, Yellowstone. I saw it all now. They were going for it all, the whole world. I knew from a visit there as David what a lot of people didn't about that place. But, for the first 6 days, I played along with what was happening. I don't know, maybe somewhere in their evil hearts, they had some kind of kindness to let me have fun before it all happened. On the 7th day, we had another day of exploration. We went back to our cabin, and took turns showering. Mom told me that tonight was the night for the formal. It was strapless, so I had to bring a strapless bra with me. It was easier to put on. I then put on white tights and the dress. We took the Jeep we had rented and drove off into the park. We went into an area that I had never read about. We got out of the Jeep and walked to a clearing where there were numerous other people. There were a lot of very powerful, rich, and famous people there. I saw the head of the Denver mob, as well. That explained the connection then. I saw a man that my instincts screamed was Tanya's father. He laughed at seeing me, and said, I would say you're beautiful than I imagined, but your mom has sent me regular pictures. I suppose I would feel some conscience at what is about to happen if you were still my daughter. But you're a thief and a hit man. That's why we arranged events to happen the way they did. There's a reason why you got away as much as you did. As David, you had magical powers you never dreamed of. You unconsciously used them, and they saved you. I cut him off there, and I know my words sounded strange coming out of Tanya's mouth. I said, dear Mom. I didn't figure out that you were the mole until the birthday. It was perfect, because until Dad activated you, you were a good witch. But I suspect that there was never any separation on that trip to Mexico. I think you were both seduced to the dark side. You screwed up, though. Playing the danger card to try to bring out my magic was a bit too much. You were the only person besides Linda who knew where I was both times, and the other info about the mole didn't fit her. It was down to the two of you anyway, and when the kids transferred some of their magic to me, there was no dark magic. I also figured out what is happening here. Somehow, you want to activate the Yellowstone caldera. What's the term, a planet killer? You have a lot of people here. I think that you guys planned to teleport yourselves to someplace safe. All of your money probably bought you a luxury fallout shelter, to say the least. I'm just not sure where I fit in. Problem was, as with many times before, cockiness was my downfall. As powerful as I was right now, I was no match for their combined powers. I couldn't move, as I was grabbed and dragged over to an altar. I was gagged, and my hands were bound to the top, my feet to the bottom. A rope was ready to be tied around my waist. The bitch who I used to consider as Mom came over, now fully her true, evil self, and showed me what was going to happen. She said, "You are right over the center of the caldera. You know what will happen. Magic will cause it to explode, your magic. You have an elemental force about you that is far above anyone else, but the book has to activate it. The second it starts, we will teleport to our safe place. As for you, you'll be very dead, as will the rest of the world. And as for where you're headed, David, you've never redeemed yourself. I hope you enjoy hell forever. If you're wondered why you saw a witch's heaven, there are many heavens. But it's the same hell for everyone. You would have entered heaven because of your powers. Now you'll burn, first when the caldera explodes, and then forever. If you ever thought I would have forgiven you for killing my daughter, that might have been what's left of the old, dead me. Now, I can do what I really want." As I struggled against the ropes, she lifted up her fist and slammed it into my stomach. She then took out a knife and said, "Did I forget the best part? Of course we need blood." She didn't do anything like stab me in the heart. Instead, she stabbed me in the stomach and laid the book across it open to the page of the spell, and then used the rope by my abdomen to tie it down. I was losing blood and getting weak. She hit me again, this time in the face, laughed, and then walked away. I could see that they were getting ready to teleport away, when as they started, some terrible force struck. It was like a bolt of lightning from the sky, but I knew it was magic. They were caught in the middle of their teleportation. I could see where they went. Magic allowed me to see that they were sent straight to hell. But I was still tied up, and the earth started to shake violently. The bad news was, although they were gone, the spell was still happening. I fought against the ropes, but blood loss was really weakening me. I began to pray, out of desperation. Then, I heard Tanya's voice. I forced my eyes open and saw her floating in front of me. I was gagged, so I couldn't talk, but she heard me anyway. She said, "You can do it. You can free yourself. Use your magic to break the ropes." I thought I was done, but with a simple thought, I was free, first my hands, then my feet. I freed myself from the rope holding the book on me, and then sat up. I realized I was so weak that I could barely move. She said, "It's about to blow. It's beyond being able to stop. There is only one thing you can do. Use your focus as David to use her powers to absorb the elemental energy into yourself." I said, "But won't that change the earth forever when it leaves the earth?" She said, "The only thing that will happen is the volcano will go dormant for 1,000,000 years. You'll be cooling it down and returning it to the earth. But you have to do it now." I told her, "You know, this is going to kill me. I hope that saving the world is enough for redemption." Then, I began to absorb the energy as the biggest volcano in the world exploded. It burned away my beautiful white dress. It didn't matter, it was all bloody anyway. The force of the magic lifted me off of the ground and burned more painfully than I could ever have imagined. It was cooking me on the inside, but the sheer force of will that had kept me alive kept me going. Finally, the blast stopped. I don't know if it was hours, days, or if my magic had sped it up. But I fell unconscious. I thought I was dead until I heard Linda's voice. She was crying and holding my head in her lap. She said, "We got here too late to try to help and to save you. I'm going to ease the pain until the time comes. I know everything now. I knew most of it about you, and Tanya came to me in a dream and told me the rest. She said to tell you that you've done more than enough. I think we can both assume what that means." I felt myself slowly drifting away, and the pain disappeared. Then, I went through that same tunnel up as I had before. But now, it was different. I realized that I was myself again, at 30. I walked through the forest the way that I remembered, until I reached the village. The person I wanted to see so badly was waiting with a big smile on her face. Tanya said, "Events were manipulated far beyond our control. You have more than redeemed yourself. You saved the earth. The end of days has been fought off yet again." Now, I finally understood, or did enough to learn the rest. The goddess, Gaia, had planned this from before either of us was born. She said, "Come, Gaia wants to meet you, but first, our heaven has visitors from another one." I heard two familiar voices say, "You cut that one a little close, bro. Good thing you had some help." I turned around and saw two people I thought I would never see again, my sisters, Kristen and Paige. They, like everyone else, were 30 years old. In way of explanation, Tanya said that one thing, the age, holds true through all of the heavens, or paradises. It makes it easier on everyone. Paige said, "Since we weren't witches, we don't stay here all the time. We live in another heaven, but we can all travel back and forth." I said, "Good, I'd hate to only see you this one time." Tanya had walked off to talk to another new arrival. I looked, and it was Linda. I ran over to hear, as she got used to the fact that she was now 30. Then, she was shocked to see both Tanya and I separately. But, she started laughing. She said, "I don't know why I'm surprised if you were going to make it, of course you'd have your own bodies." I introduced them both to my sisters, who then said that I needed to come visit them, so I could meet their husbands. I was surprised, but Kristen said, "We can have marriage in heaven, all of them. In fact, don't look now, but Linda is checking you out. I looked and saw it was true, but when I turned around with a smart remark, they were gone, only their laughter still there. I walked over to Tanya and Linda, who were talking about Tanya's boyfriend she had already met. She wanted us to meet him. She went on ahead to get him, leaving Linda and I some time to talk. I said, "You tried too hard to help me, didn't you? It killed you, and that's why you wound up here right after me." I was crying as I said it. I knew that here, crying and showing emotion, was cool for men. She was crying too. She said, "I realized that it wasn't just Tanya that I wanted to save, it was this other, strange person inside of her that had just saved the world. We made such a total connection that I saw who you were and how much you had changed. But I hope you know now that there had always been a core goodness in you." I said, "I know. I finally get that now. I wish I had known on Earth, so I could have taken advantage of it." She said, "Everything was set up by Gaia for this. You made some bad choices in the people you killed, and will eventually have to face them here. But, eventually, the bad is forgotten, and as they said in Ghost, only the love remains." We hugged, and then headed towards the village. We had been friends, and in the end, when she tried to save me, we had known an intimacy beyond all words. We turned towards the village, and saw Tanya heading towards us with her boyfriend. I thought he looked familiar, and then realized that he was about the same age as when I killed him for informing on the mob. He wasn't one of them, just an unfortunate witness. Well, there was no time like the present to learn to deal with this. As we turned to go meet them, I felt Linda slip her hand in mine, and I knew that I would have someone to help me deal with this kind of stuff, and all the good that was to come.